Okay, so we're gonna start some new material and it's really pretty easy. We're gonna start by talking about circles. So the first thing we're gonna do today is talk about all the different parts of a circle. So you're gonna need to print off this vocabulary sheet. I know these words are kind of weird to read, so we're gonna redo them. But if you can't print it, just get out a piece of paper. So we're gonna start by, what is a circle actually? You know what? Let's take a look at what we already know. So I know I have to have a center point, right? And if I'm gonna draw a circle, the best way to draw it would be to use a compass. Now I'm gonna swing this around and I see it's not gonna work so great, so I'm gonna take this off of here. That'll let me swing it around a lot easier. So I need to start my circle with the center. And then I'm going to take my compass, I'm going to put that center right on the dot there, and I'm going to swing this around. And what I'm doing is I'm creating the circumference. That's a vocab word that we're going to be going over. The circumference of a circle is the outside edge of the circle. So we've created a lot of stuff here. We've got our center. We've got our outside edge, which we call the circumference. Now, if I go from the center to the circumference, I have the radius. If I bring it all the way across, I'm just going to do it over here. If I bring it through the center and all the way across, I have a diameter. Those are some of the words that we already know. Circle, center of the circle, radius, diameter. But now we're going to be adding some new vocabulary. Just when you thought you knew everything about a circle, we're going to be talking about more stuff. So we're going to be talking about parts of the circle, parts of the inside of the circle, parts of the outside of the circle, lines that can go through a circle but not through the center. So keep that in mind while we go through. I want you to follow along closely with when we do this vocab. So let's switch over. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about circle. C-I-R-C-L-E. I know it looks kind of funky there. If you want to rewrite it, go ahead. But there's actually a definition for a circle. We're going to start by putting a point in the center, and we're going to call that point P. And because we called it P, this is now circle P. So I'm going to write the definition. Well, I know it's a round thing. There's a center. The definition for a circle is the set of points that are equidistant. Equidistant, that's a fancy word for saying all the same distance. And it's not equal, it's equidistant from a given point. And that given point is the center. So let's talk about that for a second. It's everything that is included from this center point and all of the points that are an equal distance from that center point. So if I were to look, all of this is the circle, including its circumference, including points all throughout the circle. So that's our official definition. The set of points that are equidistant from a given point, and that point is called the center. So let's take a look at the next one. The next one is something else that we're familiar with. Let's draw that point P again. And from that point P, we want to draw a line from the center to its circumference, which is the edge. And we're going to call this point A. So that means this distance from A to P is the radius. R-A-D-I-U-S. The radius, and the formal definition is a segment with endpoints at the center and on the circle. So that is our definition for a radius. We knew what it was. It's from the center to the edge. The formal definition is a segment with endpoints at the center. Helps if I put an R there. And on the circle. The next one is one that you probably you've heard the word, but maybe you don't know this definition. And that's a chord, and not like a chord on your iPhone or your charger. This is a little different. We're gonna make a line that hits this circle, but does not go through the center. And I'm going to call these points J and K. So, do you notice that I'm not going through the center there? I want you to do the exact same thing. The definition for this segment is, or for the chord is, a segment with endpoints on the circle. A segment with endpoints on the circle. So, it's kind of like a diameter because a diameter has endpoints on the circle, but a diameter is different because a diameter actually goes through the center. And we've known that definition. That's our next vocab word. Diameter. So, let's take a look. Diameter means di and meter, 2 measures, which it really just means 2 lengths of the radius. So let's take a look at this. We have right here, let's draw, eyeball the center, we call it P, and then we want to go through this, and we're gonna mark the endpoints A, B. So the only difference between a chord and a diameter, now we have a diameter is a chord that passes through the center. Now remember, just like I said, a diameter equals 2 radiuses, or radii. 1 diameter equals 2 radius. Just by the breakdown of the word itself, di meaning 2, meters meaning measure, so diameter means 2 measures, which are 2 measures of the radius. Let's take a look at the next one. The next one is a secant. Bet you haven't heard that word before. S-E-C-A-N-T. I know the font is really funky on here, so rewrite the word. Because you're going to be taking a quiz with these, and you know what's going to be nice when you take a quiz at home? With your notes? You get to look at your notes while you're taking the quiz. So, let's take a look here. A secant is a line that intersects a circle at 2 places. Well, a segment, a chord is a segment with endpoints on the circle. This is just saying now I have a line. So lines go on infinitely, right? So the only difference is this thing doesn't end on the circle, right? This thing is going to go on forever and ever. I'm going to mark its endpoint, or the 2 points of that line that happen to go through that circle. But a secant is simply a line that intersects. Remember, intersects means to go through. Intersects the circle in 2 places. So a secant, it's like a line that's shooting, it actually is hitting that circle in 2 places. Let's take a look at the next word, tangent. And tangent is a word that some people use in everyday life. If you go off on a tangent. But tangent, the actual definition, it's a line that intersects a circle in exactly 1 place. So I'm going to pick some place on this circle. I'm just going to pick the top right there. I'm going to call that little point Q. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to try to make it look so that that line is only touching that circle in 1 place. And the intersection is Q. Now I'm going to give a couple other points here. I'm going to name a couple other points, P and R. But this line is a tangent line, and the word tangent is a line that intersects the circle at exactly 1 point. All right. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm only hitting that circle at 1 point, and if I could draw an infinite number of tangents that hit that circle. So let's take a look at this next one. The next one helps me with the definition that I just wrote. It should be pretty self-explanatory. The point of tangency. The point of tangency, let's draw a picture of that. Let's repeat the same picture we did for tangent. I'm going to put a point Q. I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw it a little, bam, like that. P and Q are two other points, or P and R are two other points on that line. The point of tangency, that is the point where the line hits the surface, or the line intersects, if we want to be fancy, the circle. So this line PR or PQ or RQ, whatever, however you want to name that, this line PR is a tangent line. The point of tangency is only Q. So if I'm naming the line, I could name this line PQ or PR or QR or RQ, but if I'm naming the point of tangency, that's exactly the point where it hits the circle. So let's flip this over. We've got another side here. Come on. Whoopsie, not on here. Let me find it. So let's take a look. Where is that sheet? There it is. We're all patiently waiting there. So our next word, vocabulary word for circles. Who knew there were so many parts of a circle that we could talk about? This next one is called central angle. Now, this is something that you're going to want to remember because we're going to be using a central angle probably with the rest of this circle unit. So I'm marking my point P. That's the center of the circle, remember. I'm going to make it look more centered. That doesn't look real centered. I'm going to make it look real centered. So from that point P, I am going to draw an angle. Now remember, the vertex of that angle is on the center of my circle. Right? I'm going to call this point where it hits A, and I'm going to call this point where it hits B. And this is really angle. Remember, when you name an angle, its vertex has to be in the center. This is angle APB. So, the definition of a central angle, let's rewrite this because it doesn't look good. Central angle. An angle with a vertex come on, keep writing. An angle with a vertex at the center and two sides that are radii. Two sides that are radii. That just means two radius, right? So, super important part of this. for a central angle, you have to have the vertex at the center. Now, we have another type of angle, and that's called an inscribed angle. Let's write that. I-N-S-C-R-I-B-E-D. Inscribed angle. An inscribed angle, totally different than a central angle. We're going to put its vertex and its two sides all are going to be touching the circumference or the outside edge of the circle. So take a look here. I'm going to draw it just like this, and you should be drawing these all along with me. Don't just have me do the work here. So A, B, and I'm going to call this point C. So this would make this angle ACB because its vertex is here. And for this is an inscribed angle, and this is an angle with a vertex on the circle. An angle with a vertex on the circle. And two sides. And two sides that are chords. So, the vertex on the edge of the circle created by two chords. Notice I'm not hitting the center. So this is an inscribed angle. We're going to have different properties for these. So the next one, you probably already, because we talk about arcs, casting an arc when we're doing constructions in geometry, but an arc is part of the circumference. So I'm going to just do 2 points here, and I'm going to call them A and B. But for you guys, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight it just so you can see that this is the part I'm talking about. Right there. AB. It's a portion of the edge of the circle. A portion of the edge of a circle. A portion of the edge of a circle defined by two endpoints. Now, it's not a line. It can't be a line, right? Because it's curved. When we talk about an arc, we have a symbol for the arc. So let's put that right here, symbol. The symbol for the arc is a little arc. So if you see this symbol and I say like arc AB, you're gonna see that little little arc all by itself. So I'll give you a couple seconds to keep going. So if I wanted to name this arc AB, I would call it AB with that little arc above it, arc AB. Let's take a look at this. Now, because arcs can be any length, we're going to categorize them. There are going to be three things that we're going to talk about. A minor arc, M-I-N-O-R, arc. A major arc. And then a semicircle. So, I'm sure some of you are already thinking, well, minor usually means smaller. Major, that word might mean it's bigger, and you'd be right. A minor arc. Let's draw a minor arc. I'm going to put a point here and a point here. I'm going to call these AB again. This is a minor arc. This is the little section of the circle that I'm talking about. I have to show you that because what if I was talking about this arc? Well, that would be a major arc. But let's take a look at this. The definition for a minor arc is an arc with a measure less than 180 degrees. So think about that, less than half the circle. Less than half the circle, we call it a minor arc. Important fact here, let's put a little star. When we are naming this, we use 2 letters to name it. Why is that important? Because if I just said arc AB, you don't know if I'm talking about this little arc or this side of the circle. So when I write it like this is saying, oh, arc AB is a minor arc, so that's going to be the smaller part. Let's take a look at major arc. I'm sure you can guess what I'm going to say here. A major arc, AB. Well, that's no different than the minor arc. Well, important fact. I've got to add another point. Now I'm talking about this major arc is from A, I'm passing through C and stopping at B. So I have greater than 180 degrees there, and that's going to be part of the definition. An arc with a measure I'm going to give you time to write that down, greater than 180 degrees. An arc with a measure greater than 180 degrees. So when I'm naming this major arc, you have to use 3 letters to name it. Why is that important? Well, it's super important because I have to know, am I doing from here to here, which would be a minor arc, or am I going all the way around? So when I name it, this is arc ACB. I start at one point, I have to pass through a point, and there's my ending point. The last one for today, which this is a pretty easy lesson for you guys. We're just talking about vocab. A semicircle. Well, a semicircle, it has to, first of all, let's start with our center and mark it P for our picture. Now, if you have a straight edge, use your straight edge and draw a diameter anywhere. Just draw a diameter anywhere. And then I'm going to mark, that's point P, the semicircle. I got J, and I'm going to call this L. A semicircle is an arc with endpoints on a diameter. Now, why do I say a diameter and not the diameter? Well, because there's an infinite number of diameters on any circle. A semicircle always equal to 180 degrees. Always equal to 180 degrees. When I name it, I always use 3 letters. So let's take a look here. I'm going to have to put another point on here. I'm going to call that K. So I'm going to call this semicircle JKL. And that's it for today, folks. You might want to go over those a few times. Tomorrow we're going to talk about the formulas, which are a review for area and circumference. And then we're going to use what we know about area and circumference and proportions to figure out what an arc length is. So that's plenty for today. Hope you all are doing well, and I will talk to you again soon.